Hello and welcome to SoulWhat, a Soultopia production with our producer, Matt Stoker. I am your host, Michelle Welch.
And I'm Roger Welch. So what's up today, Michelle?
I am really excited today because we have with us a very special guest. His name is Jeff Pulver, and Jeff helped change the way the world communicates.
Yes,
Seriously,
he did.
like literally. And Roger, I know you can talk about like this. Help me read this bio a little bit, right? And then Jeff can really explain it when we get him talking about all the things that he has done to help change the world, the way the world communicates, right?
Exactly.
He's known as the father of VoIP, Voice of IP, right? And he's the founder of Jeff Pulver Entertainment. And you can reach him at pulver.com. He has what's called Von Events, and which led to him being the co-founder of Vonage, and we'll let him explain that later. Jeff is an internet pioneer, a futurist, an entrepreneur, an astrophotographer, which is, I love what he does with that, and an oracle. And Jeff Pulver Entertainment currently produces 6 live shows, which I watch many of them. I sign up for all of them, but I make it to a lot of them weekly. You guys, 6 live shows weekly, and host exclusive retreats in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Hello, Jeff. I'm so glad to see you.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
I'm so glad to have you on. We were so excited, and I told Roger that I've gotten to know you through our good dear friends, Monty and Amy, who've been on the show several times. Monty and Amy have come on, I don't know, twice, Roger?
2 or 3 times. Yeah.
2 or 3 times, and we always love having them on. But I said, Roger, you're going to have to help me ask a lot of questions about some of the other things that we don't always get to talk. I mean, Jeff, I have wanted to come to some of the things you do that I want you to talk about, like the creator, the crypto stuff that we're going to get into, I hope, a little bit tonight. And also some of the things you did to be, and this is where I'd like to start, to change the world of communication. I think it's the coolest thing. And it really, I haven't told you this, but when I was in law school, to try out for barrister, which was our moot court competition, not our mock trial, not where you did a whole trial, but where you did, it was teams of 2. My competition was about, it was cable and stuff, but the accessibility of that to all people, and whether or not everybody could use it, or whether or not you had to pay for that. And is that something, maybe with the internet or different things that you have worked on, or am I totally off base with that?
You are close to being very much on base. Some of the work that I did has had a profound effect on access. Well, so much so that in the United States and in many countries around the world, there is a law that came out of my name in 2004 known as the Pulver Order, which is why voice and video on the internet today is free.
So and
so
Matt,
I helped make that happen.
Yeah. So yes, there's a thing called, and Matt's going to tell you to refresh, I think, right now.
Your camera's frozen right now.
You guys, so if we, now you're back. We have such high energy in here with Jeff on tonight that everything.
We're having all types of technical issues on both sides.
So I think Oracle and like Grand Diviner should go at the very top of WIPE. And a lot of the people that we have on the show are people who use their intuitive abilities in their regular life. So they're not just readers or oracles all day, every day, but they use it to be lawyers or to be great business people like you. And so I think you're the one that we've had on with the most energy because the things are going crazy in here, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah. Yeah. And Jeff, so, all right. So guys, I had this little bitty thing. You plugged it into your internet way back, right? You plugged it into your internet, you could plug your phone in it and it worked. Okay. And people's like, you did what? Nobody got that concept that you actually could just plug this little piece into your internet and plug your phone in, and you got a phone number and it worked.
Right. That was a ATA. We call that, it was an ATA 186, but yes, that's exactly what it did. It was a dedicated piece of hardware that seamlessly gave you dial tone, right over the internet.
So how'd you come up with that, Jeff?
Well, I did not invent that piece. I know the people who did. In fact, they did quite well. They got acquired by Cisco Technologies. What I did goes back to the 70s in terms of how I did what I did. But growing up as a kid in Long Island, outside the suburbs of New York City, it was a long journey when you're like 7, 8, 9 years old and feeling alone. And it was my uncle who introduced me to amateur radio. And what I realized, what he did is he had the cure for loneliness. And it was one of those seminal moments of your life where everything is different afterwards. And in this particular case, my father told me for months to call my Uncle Fred up to, after school, to go see him, just to get a demonstration of ham radio. And I don't know how many 9-year-olds listen too well, but one day I get home from school and there's my uncle, and he takes me to his office, which was about an hour and a half away from where we lived. And he had a company that manufactured cable TV test equipment in the 1970s. And he shows me around his office. Everyone's super kind to him. And I sit in his office, and it's just not too big. And there's a desk, and there's a box on that desk. And this is like that moment that forever really changed my life, because I'm sitting on one side of this desk with this box there, and he flips the switch and it starts to glow. Well, I didn't realize it was a radio, and with a radio tube. And then there's all this noise comes out, but he's tuning the dial, and he hears voices and I hear noise. And then he sits there and he pushes down his microphone and he speaks these very cryptic words, which in ham radio parlance says, CQ, CQ, this is K2QQ, I'm calling CQ. And repeats this for an hour, for about a minute. He lets go of that microphone. And for an hour, I'm sitting there in awe, because from people all over the world start talking to my uncle. I never realized he was so popular. I never realized he was so much in demand. But everybody spoke English from every country. And what I realized in the hours sitting there listening to my uncle be on the radio is he had the cure for loneliness. Mm. And being a good nephew, I figured if all I could do is take this box and put it in my bedroom, I would always have friends. I'd always have a way to connect to the world. But he wouldn't give me his radio to take home. And it's like, but why not? I'm a good nephew. And it's because you needed to be licensed. You needed to be licensed to communicate. Yeah. And so between the ages of 9 and 12, I taught myself college physics, Morse code, and the rules and regulations to be a ham operator. And I tested often, and finally, when I was like 12 and a half, I got my license to communicate, and arguably, I haven't shut up since. And as a ham operator, one of the things I loved to do more than anything else was do phone patches. And if you ever watched MASH and saw Radar O'Reilly connecting folks from Korea to loved ones back in the States, that was called a phone patch. And there's a whole history behind it. And I really loved the idea to be of service, to help people connect to folks from all over the world who had loved ones here in the States. And so I did phone patches. It was just a thing. Mm. And when the internet was very young, back in 1994, and I very innocently discovered a platform that lets you talk on the internet, just like amateur radio, but it was using computers. I said, we should do phone patches, just like my ham radio. So why not? So I did. I actually connected some old hardware together, and boom, I was able to get dial tone over the radio. And in 1995, I launched what was called Free World Dialup, and it effectively was the first phone network that ran on the internet. If you remember Napster, which really liberated music, I did the same thing for voice communications, and it was a moment in time where it was free. Strangers let strangers make free phone calls through their computers, and it was a if you will, a tipping point for the future, and that sort of just opened up the door of possibilities of what could happen. So I very innocently started the first phone network on the internet. About 17 months later, I learned about public policy, and when 300 phone companies went to the Federal Communications Commission to stop the sale and use of internet telephony software and try to make the makers of it be regulated as telcos, which was just funny. And I had a day job at the time, and I thought this was just very silly about what was going on. But within a few months, I started a trade association, and we stopped that petition. I'm still chairman emeritus of the Voice of the Net Coalition, And what happened most importantly is that industry was born. And I gave up my job on Wall Street. Mostly the job was taken from me, which saved my life, ironically, because I used to work in the World Trade Center. And I created what became the trade show and conference for the world, for the entire, for the galactic gathering of people interested in the future of communications. We'd gather in the States at first, and then in Europe and around the world. And we just defined the future. And it was the words fear, greed, and disruption on the edge of innovation. And it was just magical. Public policy was rewritten, and the conferences grew from 224 people in the beginning to literally 6,000 people twice a year in the U.S., plus in Europe, and then ultimately other parts of the world. And while I was doing that, I was doing many other things, all related. I once had a company that created products that I thought should exist, but at the same time, I started some entertainment stuff in music, and then I had a premonition in 2003. And to Michelle's point, I led with intuition. I saw the future before it happened. I invested into it, believing this is exactly what was going to happen. And in 2003, if you remember 2003, it was post.com crash. It was after 9/11, and it was also after the telecom crash. And I was afraid the phone companies were going to understand how big broadband was going to be. And all the nascent opportunities for entrepreneurs would be taken away by the greed of the phone companies. So I went to the attorneys who I used in Washington to create the Voice on the Net Coalition and said, "Hey, can we be proactive?" And they said, "Sure. What are your ideas?" And I laid down this idea that to get regulatory clarity, that voice communication and by default video that starts on the public internet that doesn't touch a legacy phone network for not to be regulated as telecom. And it took a year. It was a lot of fun and interesting interactions in between. But on February 12th, 2004, the Federal Communications Commission issued the Pulver Order, and it literally changed telecom policy, not only in the US, but around the world. Companies like Verizon became data companies. Stanford Business School put out a case study about this back in November 2004, and it's been really crazy times. But it's the intuition is there, and a sign that you need to hear yourself more often is when I used to work on Wall Street back in, I think it was like 94, I had an idea for web-based email before Hotmail came out. And I shared the idea with some friends who didn't get it. And they told me it was a bad idea, so I didn't do it. And then I had an idea to do mortgage brokering on the internet, and some friends said, "Oh, that's a bad idea, I didn't do that." What I realized afterwards is I needed new friends. and I needed to hear my own voice and to speak my truth and to follow it. And not that I don't listen or ask for input from people, particularly in fields where I don't know anything, I'm not an expert, but to have the strength to just be who you are and to live that life and to be on that edge and to follow your intuition no matter where it takes you. That's what I do. And so when it came to being soulful, and connecting with people, one of the most uncomfortable things it's one thing when people ask you a question and you give them an answer, they're not prepared for the answer, but what if they didn't ask? What if you're sitting next to somebody on an airplane and you have a message for them and you give them the message and they're in shock? Sometimes they receive it in denial, sometimes they receive it like, what do you mean by that? And that happens, I am someone who, until the pandemic, I would travel literally every week for about 24 years. I would be in no location more than 14 to 16 days, ever. So it was a different lifestyle, but I was all over the place. And whether it was at professional conferences or just randomly sitting next to somebody or talking to somebody, because I just felt like I had a message for them. People are not always ready to receive, but you never know what's going to happen. But you learn not to filter, and you learn to just speak through, and it's truly magical. And
for those that haven't seen him, Jeff on Monty and Amy
Ask the
and
Oracles.
Ask the Oracles.
It's
Okay,
all
their shows, right?
Yeah, it's not just one.
You usually read from the creative deck because I've seen it.
Well, I use that deck because it's it's easier sometimes, and it's. And what I love is the fact is that when we pull cards, it usually resonates the messages being shared by the others.
Yep.
I wore out the deck so much. Monty and Amy for season 2 gave me a second deck. So I have it.
So how long have you been reading cards like that?
Just just for the past year.
So so this is stuff in the past has always just been what's come up just naturally for you then.
Absolutely. I mean, it's and I don't challenge that anymore. It's sometimes it happens when I'm sitting randomly, but of course now it's sort of like once the secret gets out. So I have a bunch of people. I call them friends, but they are friends who I help, who don't necessarily, who maybe didn't solicit the input, but I had messages for them, and some of these conversations are going now for 12 years. And I've attempted to make a practice from it. A friend of mine who passed away, who was an amazing oracle, I promised her I would charge money for my services because she said if I didn't charge, people would not respect me. And somehow I fell into this whole mentorship slash mind game, whatever it was, not mind games, but it was basically creating a process to teach people the best practices of a certain topic, and it really wasn't for me. And it's so I will one day charge publicly. Right now, I'm happy to do it privately for those who just need help. And it also it comes under the category of intuitive healing, not because I do medical stuff, but when you're sitting next to somebody, everything comes out. There are no secrets.
I find that too, and that's I do a lot of. I don't know if you knew this, but it's for me a lot of medical intuitive intuition comes out, and in fact, it's going into this next book. And one thing that really stuck out to me that you said, Jeff, earlier, is when your uncle said to you something about. I don't know if you said the cure for loneliness or something for loneliness.
No, I just having that amateur radio in my bedroom ultimately was the cure for loneliness, because I'd be on the radio 40 to 60 hours a week while going to school.
So it seems to me that, like, I know that you also help people. People will come to you because you're an entrepreneur and you've done so well, and you have this knowingness that you have had a lot of people that you will know very quickly whether or not, when they pitch you an idea. I want you to talk about this. When someone pitches you an idea, and what a good pitch, a bad pitch, and you have classes on this. People can take classes, or even some of your live shows that you do. You will go over these things. But to me, it kind of ties back into that. You were providing something for something that met a purpose. That communication filled an answer to a problem, loneliness. Yeah. But Roger and I were talking, and I said one of the things that's most fascinating to me about Jeff is that he will say, I don't want a pitch the way that people usually do it, and he knows right away whether or not you're going to invest in somebody's company or what they're going to tell you. Can you talk a little bit about that to us?
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little uncomfortable when I speak the words of the entrepreneur before they do. But it's some of it is highly predictable, and some of it is just intuitively obvious. But to pull back, I happen to be somebody that I've spent literally 17 meetings a day, 19 meetings a day, back to back to back, listening to startup pitches. And if I say yes to a meeting, generally that means I'm interested. And if the meeting is a 30-minute meeting, I know within 5 minutes whether I'm interested in investing, and then I give the people 20 to 25 minutes to convince me not to. And that's how you end up investing in more than 450 startups since 1998, and not including companies which I may have started myself or provided early funds for, where it was just a startup. So in terms of what I look for people not to do the obvious. I mean, for some reason, for everyone who seems to go to business school wants to, in their deck, impress the investor by creating a magic matrix inspired by Gartner. And they always put themselves in the top right-hand corner, no matter what. No one has the guts to ever put themselves in the lower right or lower left and say, well, damn it, we're the best in that area. Mm-hmm. And everyone also seems to be fascinated that there's hockey stick growth, that somehow, no matter who they are or what they're doing, there's always going to be this curve. And it's like, take that out. I call that a BFN because it's a big effing number, and people think they're impressed. And it's like, it doesn't impress anybody, and it's too predictable. And so at the end of the day, I look for entrepreneurs to be people. I look to peel back and see, can these people pivot? Do they have what it takes? Because most of the biggest and most successful companies in the world changed what they were doing by the time they became great. But they were open to, and they had management, and they had the ability and have a core team that was tight. And they were able to change what they were doing dynamically until they figured out ultimately who they were and what their calling was. And so I make gut calls, and where I've been wrong, it was timing more than anything else. But just like how some people in the music industry could find up and coming artists that will be famous one day, a bunch of the CEOs I invested in when they were kids became unicorn CEOs or would ultimately start multi-billion-dollar companies a few years later. Every once in a while, I got the timing right, but there's just there are certain tells. And then again, it's just a matter of what's the balance and energy, and are they willing to listen? You know, it's one thing to be headstrong, and it's certainly, I totally respect people that are driven by intuition. But if the only reason they want me on their cap table is because I can help them get them more money because I invested, and they have no interest in what I do or care about who I am, I don't touch them, not even a little bit.
Right.
And you know, that sort of goes into the category of as life advice. Avoid all those energy vampires. Avoid the people that knowingly, when you're in the room, suck your energy without your permission, because life is hard as it is. But to knowingly create a situation where people are just going to drain you, it's just no fun.
Right. You know, I think on your first Instagram, you were talking about that. I missed it. The first time you did an Instagram live a couple weeks ago, or time flies, it might have been more than a couple weeks ago, but you were talking about energy vampires, and
Yes.
I've had a couple of those, and we've gone through Soultopia. We've done.
Yeah.
I've had to really, really learn, because it's very hard for me to just learn those boundaries and to say when to say no to people, and it's on a much smaller scale, of course, than what you're talking about. But nonetheless, it's my life, right?
I think it's on every scale. Saying no and hearing no is really hard.
Yeah, it
You
really
know,
is.
I am someone who trusts by default. You know, no matter how often I'm burned, I still believe the next person I'm going to meet is a beautiful person, has a great soul, unless they prove me otherwise. And you know, being open like that, you are vulnerable. But I believe vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. And I believe allowing yourself to be open to receive and open to share is a gift. And in the world of business, you know, intuitive investing, it doesn't really go over well when I tell people, well, you know, what are the specs? Well, it turns out in real life, every company that I've been successful with myself, I never necessarily had a business plan. I just did it. My style of running businesses are basically benevolent dictatorships, which jokingly but truthfully, it's, you know, when I'm on a run, I see it ahead of the curve, and I look to have build a great team that can help me execute. And in terms of you know, just being around people, when I sense greatness, I shut up, and and what's challenging is, like, right now I'm juggling. I actually see a wonderful opportunity for a brand new company, which I probably should be chairman of, not necessarily running. I could run it, but it has the potential for being one of the top, I don't know, 2 or 3 businesses I ever would have done. But at the same time, I'm having so much fun creating live internet TV programming. I first started doing this in 2003, in 2004, in 2005, and for 7.5 years, I had a live internet rock radio station that I ran in my offices on Long Island. The only difference between me and the FM radio stations who are on Long Island is that I may have had better equipment, but they had an FM radio license, so I couldn't really compete. But on the TV content side, I think I figured stuff out. So I'm having so much fun with that, particularly with live music.
Right.
And I'm working on a pitch for a web TV series, which I think would be good enough to be picked up by a major content provider. So that's something which I'm doing now. But I stumbled into an amazing need in the financial world for a company, which I haven't seen anyone else do. So I am leaning toward putting that team together to make that happen too. So there's a lot going on, but having the strength and the silliness to listen to yourself and to be empowered. So, you know, the entire experience for me for building the trade shows and conferences came from me attending many, many conferences. But, you know, the nice thing about being an entrepreneur is you can create your own culture, and you create that environment that makes you comfortable, that lets you be you, and creates a safe space for you to communicate. And so I did that for the teams I built and I did that most importantly for me, and it worked out well. And I used to be apologetic for being lucky, because there were some people just got to me because they said, "Oh, I was successful only because I was lucky." Turns out being lucky is okay. Never apologize for being lucky.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and I have to say, and Roger knows this. A lot of times he's up here when I'm taking my time on Thursdays when I can to be at Jeff's place. Could you tell us about Jeff's place? I will tell you from my perspective, Jeff's place when I can, and sometimes I will even have it in my office up here at Soultopia, and I will be at Jeff's place, and it is. I'll cry sometimes because the music's so beautiful. It will rejuvenate me. It charges my soul and my spirit. So could you tell us about Jeff's place, because it's probably one of my favorite things.
It is certainly my favorite thing. Jeff's Place is a virtual coffee house that I started a while ago. It was started in 2020. And imagine a coffee house where people are sitting around, but they're actually sitting from all over the world on any given Thursday at 1 o'clock Central. We have guests in the audience from 8 different time zones, from the West Coast to the US and Canada, all the way into the Middle East. The artists predominantly are either from Ireland, the UK, Canada, or the US. I've had other artists. And the genre specifically is maybe modern folk, although there are people who play rock, a lot of country, and really a lot of beautiful voices. We have artists which you may never have heard of, but their voices are absolutely amazing. And I have a very strong passion for helping to help people get discovered. I strongly believe that many of the artists we've been hearing at Jeff's Place are just one click away from becoming famous. So in 2022, I'm launching the Just One Click Tour, where I'm going to be bringing some of these artists around America to do tour dates. And from that, I'm actually creating I won't call it regular, but it hasn't really been done before. But imagine meeting people during a pandemic online, building a community that's global, and then filming people's life experiences on the road as they get discovered in the physical realm. So the Just One Click TV is all about the individual artist and their journey through the music industry and living their passion. So that's the TV show I'm working on.
Oh, that'll be good.
And so it's so any given Thursday, it's just a random assortment of artists. This particular week, I happen to have 4 singer-songwriters who've been on the show before, and we're in the format of songwriters in the round. So it'll be 4 songs, hearing the backstory of each of the songs, and it helps. I have friends of mine who are professional musicians. Some of them have dropped by at the show, and it turns out that people write their music. Sometimes they channel it from source, and it's so heart touching. And you'll hear covers. And then I cry. I mean, it's just.
I've cried.
those
I have
words.
cried. Oh yeah, it's just been beautiful, and it always seems to be the right thing at the right time. For it's and everyone in the chat will be saying the same thing, just that it touches everybody right at the moment. The right person's on at the right time and singing. A lot of times, the songs they've written are really
Yeah.
touching everyone that's there at Jeff's Place. So
So what I've been able to do, Michelle, is to create an intimacy. I've repurposed Zoom to be literally that coffee house setting where it's a safe space where people from around the world are sitting there face to face with the artist. And during the pandemic, for the artist to have an audience to play to rather than looking at someone's icon was really a godsend for them, that they're not playing to a mirror of themselves on stage, which is what it looks like if you're on Facebook or Stage It or Instagram. But they're playing to people and they're seeing the reactions, and that's magical. And then and what turns into this very intimate setting where these are voices of the future. And recently in July 15th, we were able to honor the life and legacy of Harry Chapin. And what I didn't realize at the time is, while I curated the event, is that Harry Chapin, who passed away 40 years ago, and I actually had folks on the show that created the documentary When in Doubt Do Something, and members of the Chapin family and some of the Harry Chapin superfans, is for whatever reason, they never really invited the Gen Zs and Gen Zs and millennials to play Harry's songbook. And so when I was putting together the show, while I paid respect to some of the artists who are known for playing Harry Chapin's music, the majority of the artists were playing Harry Chapin for the very first time. And when I went to an event in New York City to honor Harry a few days later, they were blown away by these artists. They were blown away. They were blown away by the voices,
Oh, yeah.
and it was just inspiring to me to do more, to give and to share. And so there's something about Thursdays which I will never look at different. They'll never be the same for me. And I have the one thing is now I have a broadband addiction because I want to deliver content. I want to have better. I don't want to have good or great access to broadband to do it.
All right. I love that. And Roger's very interested in.
The cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
Because you started up your own, right?
Well, I was granted a gift to have a coin in my name known as the Jeff coin. And it turns out that there's a platform called Rally.io, because there's actually other rallies. And they're in the business of empowering creators to create and then to use a coin for really for access. So in case of the shows I do, certainly when we get into season 2, only people who hold my coin will be in the studio audience rather than the broadcast audience. So that will be we're going to use Zoom for the audience members to come in, and then at the same time we'll be broadcasting live on Twitch and YouTube, and probably I don't know, Facebook, I suppose, and we're going to and those will be different types of users. So we're using the coins for access, and there's a whole ecosystem, but there's a crypto element to it for sure, but Rally itself operates behind a corporate website known as Rally.io. And I do think for tipping purposes, I mean, that was a big thing why I also jumped at it is, in the world of Jeff Pulver Entertainment, the Jeff coin stands for joyfully entertaining fans and friends. And it's being able to avoid the service fees for Visa, MasterCard, or Amex, however people were used to tipping through tipping platforms. So it's friction-free most of the time. But it turns out when you go under the covers and really understand Rally itself is a game. And I could explain it off camera, but there's a lot I've learned since May. Besides having my own coin, it's how you play it, how you leverage it, and how you use it. But I do think in the future, many brands are going to have coins, people, communities, ecosystems, and it's just a matter of time. It just makes sense, particularly depending upon what the purposes are. And it's certainly different now than it ever was before. But it's just like the internet was inevitable, going to change the world, the way the world works, and kill a lot of jobs and create many, many jobs. Same thing for digital communications. Now we're in the area of digital money. No doubt, fear, greed, and disruption plays there big. And when people are threatened about losing control, major shifts happen. Some which you can predict, and others the chaos just ensues. And so somewhere in between is the future. And I'm excited about where we're going to go. And I know that digital communications plus digital money enables us to do things we never could do before.
Do you like in I believe it's China, right? That actually they are headed towards where it's all of China has their own digital currency. I may be wrong about that, but I think
No, the digital yuan is there. It's true.
Yeah. So do you see more of that happening across the world?
Well, about 8 years ago, the UK did it on their own private network. They did it. The U.S. government has done it. There's not a lot of things that are public. I mean, I happen to be a fintech advisor to the government of Bermuda. They've created a digital sandbox to encourage people to explore where digital currencies will go and to experiment, so that, because it's a small country with 20,000 expats and I think 40,000 people from Bermuda who live there. And so, but they can be, the best they can be is a sandbox for the future for other countries to come and play and explore where public policy can evolve to help encourage innovation. I think we're just a few years away from this becoming a public thing. But I've met central bankers from various parts of the world, and it's a matter of age and retirement. And just like in the telecom industry, some people did not want to touch it. They wanted to retire. They knew the life a certain way. It was a good life they lived, and they wanted to retire and move on and get out. And then the people who replaced them were the ones who implemented the change. Same thing's happening in banking. There's some people of a certain age, and they don't want to deal with any of this. They make noise, but don't take too many actions. But the people who are replacing them will, and hopefully they'll figure out public policy, because bad public policy when it comes to this stuff can stifle innovation and drive many innovators to go off the U.S. shores and go to other places. It's happened before. It can happen again. So it's, I do think digital, it's more than crypto. I mean, it's really about the whole money supply and banking policies and how we do business and how that's going to refresh into a future where payments flow seamlessly. But we need to do things to protect ourselves, to prevent all the bad things, to make sure that people who transfer funds, they can identify who they are. There's privacy, and then there's Facebook, and somewhere in between there's a truth. And so there's certain compliance issues which have to be dealt with at a level that provides comfort and safety to the world, because the last thing I want to know about is anything any of us did ever had bad things. Right after 9/11, I actually met with the FCC, and when I was running free-will Dialup, I gave them whatever logs I had so that they could help in an inadvertent event that someone on my network was responsible for something bad. I gave them anything and everything they asked for and didn't, just because I could be helpful. And I like to believe that when it comes to these things like monetary policy, that people will do the right thing and will provide access when needed. And then we can move forward. But there's some other people who don't want to do that, so it becomes very political, not technical, and sometimes that chasm or that chaos that's created slows things down. And unfortunately, it's purposely, because people understand that if they create fear, greed, and disruption in a marketplace, it slows down the pace of innovation, so the incumbents can catch up, and the people who are ahead of the curve are slowed down. So it's I've seen it in other industries. It may happen here, but it's certainly very, very exciting, and I would say intuitively obvious that it will be. It's just a matter of when.
Do you and because you're talking kind of around it a little bit, but the like cryptos like Dogecoin, Bitcoin, and all, you got people that are putting their money in it to invest into it to make more money, get rich off of it. They hope. But like also trying to hide some money too, right? Because they don't track that stuff, or they haven't tracked it as much as they should, and the government's trying to put parameters into that, right, to try to track it better?
Well, everything that's on the blockchain is traceable. So for people to think they can't be tracked, they can be. It's just a matter of what the size of the transactions are. Everything is traceable.
Yeah, I would think so.
There is not too much that isn't traceable. So if people think they're going to trade in crypto and get away with it, they won't. It's just a matter of when it catches up with them, and what the size of the transactions are compared to the size of other transactions that are being tracked. The Jeff coin specifically is not an investment. It's really more like being part of a team and showing support as a fan for whether for someone who could be a musician or an artist.
Right.
For people who support me, I'm grateful for it, but they're there for the ride, for the fun, hopefully for the access. For folks who are trading, I mean, I did work on Wall Street. I don't day trade anymore, but I supported our trading desks that traded foreign exchange, and crypto trades without some of the constraints, without some of the boundaries, and so it's really risky. And when you look at how things jump in price, 3%, 10%, 25% in a day, it's very hard to hedge. It's very hard to protect yourself against the variance and the changes in the market. So it's like anything else. You do it at your own risk.
Right.
And it's hype. The bigger problem is the lack of information, the bad actors, and all the silicon snakes people, snake oil people who you run across on the road, who are going to sell you something because they think you want to buy it. If there was a way to cherry pick and find really good people, smart, intelligent, with good intentions, um, I would go with those people. I've fortunately met some of those people on the good side, but for me, in my little corner of the world in the creator economy, I'm focusing on just having fun, not treating anything as an investment, but really as an indication of where the future can go, and how reward programs and point systems of the future will evolve.
Where do you think that, since you help change the world, the way the world communicates, and you help change the world, I believe, in many ways, and you do it with such a kind heart, which to me, you played in a big way on Wall Street and all the things you've done. It's not. I mean, you're with people, probably, you said bad actors. I mean, but yet you're a kind person. You're a good person. Two questions. How do you stay that way? Because a lot of people would say some people are corrupted, and you don't. I know your heart. I've been around you. You have the kindest heart. And number two, where do you think the world of communication is going next?
Well, the first part, the Milky Way. I ground myself by finding ways to see and find the stars. One of the reasons I'm an astrophotographer is because I have an absolute passion for connecting with the worlds beyond the one that we're on. I believe the energy that's here has come from places outside of Earth, and that some of the folks that we interact with represent energies from different galaxies and different places far from here. And it's just presented in a wrapper, in a container, which we can understand. So, partly, there are times when we need to reset. We need to have rituals for reconnecting, for grounding, and for just being. And so, I spend some time, in doing what I call me time, my time. What I would call for others advocate for self-love, but I spend time for who I am, breathe, being present, and once again doing things that create endorphins and create the energetic moments which get us through. So for me, I've learned to be kind to myself. I don't attack, and well, when I'm absolutely sure I'm dealing with a bad actor, I move out as fast as possible. Not traveling for all this time for 17 months has helped me avoid some of that, or most of it, really. But it's when you get cornered, it's really hard to deal with people that are emotionally abusive, people that are just really mean and nasty and bad, and just so I avoid bullies, and I avoid people that are going to be those dark energy vampires. In this case, crypto vampires. It's just I stay far, 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 far away. And then in terms of the future of communications, it's still evolving. At the end of the day, I think voice is the future. Look, I think voice will always be a killer app. There's so much emotion wrapped up when you call someone, you say hi, particularly when someone was in peril, and you say, I got to someplace safe. We're just saying hi, I love you. And then when someone passes, not being able to communicate with somebody, you kind of think about all the things you wish you could have said, but you didn't. And you learn how precious moments are, and that we will all have limited time horizons. So what we really do is we take advantage. We learn to live each moment and be in the now. And I happen to be someone who believes we take our past, our present, and our future with us. We are our own universe, and this is who we are each and every moment. And so when you look into the future of communications, it's people who communicate, who understand we represent everything together. They're the ones who communicate most effectively. In terms of ways we communicate, you're going to see, a continuation of, and it's the same old stuff, just repackaged, but it's going to be voice. What's really funny is now all of a sudden party lines or social audio has become a category for investment, and there are over 50 different startups all focused on being the next Clubhouse. But it's nothing new. It's just a nice thing to have, and yet it's billions and billions and billions of dollars have gone in there. So, there will be the next TikTok, Snapchat. There will be the next social networks. But at the end of the day, we're all about people, and I do think in some ways the way we communicate is by our actions, and by our voices, and for us ultimately to choose who our friends are, not to let the networks or the artificial intelligence tell us who our friends should be, but really allow ourselves to energetically connect with people who we feel attracted to, who will emotionally support us and respect us and help us maintain safe energy spaces wherever we travel, whether it's through the internet or in the physical realms. But voice ultimately is the killer app. Nothing will replace being able to be face to face and tell someone how you feel. I still hold out hope that the three-dimensional holographic imaging that we saw in the recent Star Wars movies, and for that matter, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that stuff becomes real too. But really, in-person communications that's meaningful, heartfelt, that's the present, that's the past, and that will always be the future.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you
a
for
lot.
saying that. We did not ask you ahead of time, and that is on us. We typically do readings, and I don't know, Roger, if you had anybody ask for readings or not. But Jeff, do you have your cards with you by chance?
Oh, I have cards, and
Are
depending
you
upon the question,
open to
I
doing?
probably don't need the cards, but
I know you don't. Let's see Jeff cardless. How about no cards? So tonight, Jeff.
I will plug my friends Monty and Amy's Creativity Oracle deck.
Yeah, that's
But I'm happy to go cardless. It's not a problem.
okay. But we can open it
Oh,
up.
I'm sure they will want readings.
And if not, we actually usually we have about a little less than 15 minutes left.
About 13 minutes.
About 13 minutes left, and we usually end the show with readings 1, 2, and 3, and we'll explain that in a little while. But if somebody wants a reading, we'll get our cards out. I'm going to read with Jeff. I have a big version of our crystal cards here. These are what we put in the store, and everyone listening, what I'm getting out, or if you're watching, I'm getting the big version of our crystal cards. What size are these, Roger?
3 by 4.
They're like 3 by
3 by
4.
4.
Here's a crystal quartz one, Matt. Yeah. So,
wow.
And this is what we put out to identify our crystals in the store. So in the bins and things. So this is a big deck. It's like the size of an oracle deck, right?
It is bigger than Oracle.
It's bigger than an oracle deck. Yeah, I can barely handle these. So I'm going to read with these today.
And I have Hush Tarot.
And who wrote that?
Jeremy Hush.
Jeremy Hush. Hush.
Yes.
Okay.
These are,
And
so our first one that actually would like one is actually Barrett.
Okay, so Barrett actually is on Ask the Oracles a lot. So he listens there too. So Barrett came on
He
today.
makes his rounds.
He came on probably to listen to Jeff, I'm sure. So we will give a reading for, I'm assuming just general,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and we keep them pretty short, just like you guys do on Ask the Oracles. Just kind of, I call it a lightning round always, just because we don't have a lot of time. And do you want to start, Jeff?
Sure. So what I would really say is yes, no, maybe, but not necessarily why that means anything is because there are actions to be taken, and so don't hold back, but don't go with the first opportunity and maybe the second one to focus on. But there's definitely movement, and there's I don't know. I believe there's something you've been waiting for a very long time that you needed a sign for, which is happening, and just don't jump. The opportunity is present, and it gets stronger as you wait a little bit, but then don't hold back afterwards.
And I will second that. I got Nuumite, which you guys is the most interesting spelling in the world. It's Nuummite. And so I think that's a interesting spelling, and it's a beautiful stone, and it's actually a very protective stone about what we've been talking about your psychic energy, about your not letting people zap you of your energy, but it's also a stone of energy moving very quickly. So once something does start moving, Barrett, for you, it's spiritual growth that's moving forward. It will start to move very quickly, but make sure that what's involved in it is that spiritual growth, whatever that is to you.
Yeah, Barry. And not only that, I mean, this is actually the sun card. And what's cool about this card, if you notice it, Parrot, is that the sun and it's like a raven underneath here holding on to a ribbon coming off the sun. It's kind of like you have those, there's actually a ribbon on the top too that's flying loose, but the raven's hanging on to the bottom one. You've kind of got some choices of things that are going there, right? But you kind of know where it is. Problem is you're just not committing yourself, but it's okay. Go ahead and commit yourself. It's time.
Okay.
All right.
Those all kind of went together, I think.
Yep. And the next one is clay.
Okay. So clay, we'll go ahead and Jeff, I bet you're ready, so we'll just let you go first, if that's okay.
Clay is a much different energy. Is there anything specific Clay wants, or just a general reading, or what are
General
the
reading.
parameters?
General reading for clay.
Be present. Don't go where you're thinking of going. But just like hang out and listen to yourself more. And you're in a situation where you need to ask yourself. You need to hear your own answers, and believe that you have the direction you know to be in. But hear yourself. Don't. It's not that you don't want to listen to others, but now is the time to be there for you, more than you. And you also help others. But just be there for you and hear yourself. And don't be afraid.
My answer is something about your physical, Clay. You have an old injury, and it feels like, I don't know, it feels like maybe it's an old sports injury, and it's flaring up. And so it's something, a hematoid quartz is what came up. And if you don't have one of those, just get someone to work on you with Reiki, but it's an injury that's flaring up, and the dis-ease behind that is something I feel like that you need to look at too. I feel like it's the root chakra, a feeling of instability for some reason that would potentially tie loop back into what Jeff just said.
Okay. Well, Clay, I got the Three of Pentacles. And, typically a lot of times that one, you'll see that associated with like helping one side or the other. But I really don't see it as being like a monetarily helping somebody, but actually being there for somebody to listen to them and let them talk and vent almost to you, and let you kind of, tell them what's happening.
Yes.
And just it's really not monetarily they need your help with. They need your time is what they need. Okay? All right. The next one is Alana, and she is asking for a general reading.
Okay. So, hi, Alana. How are you doing? Alana has taken,
It's that one.
Alana took both of Monty's astrology courses, and has taken a lot of classes at Soultopia. So, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, she's actually there's a general reading and there's a specific reading for her. There's a lot of noise. I'm just trying to focus on what the noise is from. It's like her. I don't know. I'm picking up on a noisy mind, which is not a bad thing. It's hard to focus on what she really, really wants. I think she actually in advance thinks she knows what she wants to hear, as opposed to wants to receive what's being presented. In terms of a general reading, I think your summer has been awfully good and maybe awfully bad at the same time. Don't give up. Things are better than you know. And it's really the same thing of just holding your ground. And in this particular case, be present. There are others you're taking care of. Oh, wow. All right, so you have an absolutely beautiful soul. I understand that. Yeah. Oh goodness. I'm not going to cry here. You're okay. You're in a good place. Just hold your ground. Be who you are. Don't be afraid to speak your truth. And the road in front of you is going to be fine. Do not worry. It's like let go of what bothers you and allow yourself to manifest where you want to be. I'll leave it at that.
You want to go?
Sure. Okay. So actually, because Michelle gets mad when I draw two cards, but two cards popped out.
Don't get mad.
Because she beats me when we get home, guys. She's so mean.
No.
But what's crazy is that the two cards, like I literally shuffled, I pulled the card, and two came out stuck together, and it's the High Priestess and the Empress card.
Wow.
So that's what I got, Alana. But the way I kind of take this, Alana, is your path, your journey that you're on, you're getting ready to transition is where you're at. You're in that, you're kind of that spot. You just keep pushing, keep moving, and you're getting ready to transition into that next level. You're powering up. Power up time.
And I'm sort of where Jeff was. And when I get the high priestess, my cards just, it was the same thing. There was a lot of noise, a lot of things coming at me all at once. And I'll say this, Alana, think about it, Alana, the high priestess and the empress. Your work and some other things that you hope for in your life. Potentially the way you might nurture and maybe motherhood and other things like that. You're thinking about a lot of things in your life right now, and I'm at the same as Jeff. It will be okay, but you are somebody who knows your own mind, but yet your mind is, you are really questioning and wondering, is this where I'm supposed to be at in my life right now? And Spirit's got you. Okay, I just want you to know that, because I know you're a lovely person, and I'm the same as Jeff. I'm just kind of, but love you and hope to see you soon.
Yep.
So,
right.
Do we have time for one more, or do we want to go to 1, 2, 3?
It's up to you. What do you want to do?
Okay, well, I've got 3 minutes, so if we want to stay timely, since I was timely today, right, Mr. Matt?
Why not start a new streak?
Why not?
Yeah.
Just
It'll
why
last
not
an entire 7 days.
So, let's do it.
All right,
okay,
1, 2, 3.
So we'll let you want to be
No cheating, y'all.
Okay, and we have Carlton here. Carlton's been on some of your shows and listened. Jeff, he always says no cheating, y'all. So what you do is you pick number 1, 2, or 3 listeners, and we will have just set your intention ahead of time that this is your message. Number 1, number 2, or number 3. Pick it now. Lock it in, and now we will have our guest, Jeff Pulver, read for you number 1. So this is your reading. It's coming from Jeff Pulver.
So this is for number 2?
You're reading for number 1s. All the number
I'm
1s.
sorry.
Yeah, all number 1s.
All the number 1s.
All the number 1s. Wow. Huh. Well, this is very complex. Let's just say that you, Monty would say, in not so many words, you need to secure your base. Now is the time to hold on to where you're at and build on top of it. Protect where you're going. Look behind you, but push ahead at the same time. There's unbound opportunity, but your baggage is that the worries that you carry with you slow you down. So it's like, be protected, but let go of the worries so that the universe can give you what you've been waiting for.
Very good.
That's
Good
cool.
message for the number 1s for this coming week and going forward. You're going to be the number 2s.
Because you picked number 2?
I always pick 2, Jeff, so he knows.
That's why I flipped my card
always
over,
pick
so she didn't look at
2.
my card to see if she was going to do it.
I should have rigged it, so I got a reading from Jeff.
No cheating, y'all.
I should have rigged it, so I got a reading from Jeff. I didn't think. Okay, so go.
You usually do.
I love a reading from you too, though, Roger.
All right. So actually, this is the 8 of Swords. So, a lot of times we kind of let the things around us kind of bound us together and keep us. But the thing is in this card, the things that are there that are kind of binding us and holding us where we're, in our place, they're floating away. So this week, let that BS float away and not have to deal with it, and let it move away from you and open up your arms and allow life to start living.
Okay. I like that.
Bam.
Okay.
Boom.
Thank you for that message for all of us that choose number 2, right? Okay, so I will wrap it up with the number 3s, and then we'll tell you guys all the ways you can get in touch with the things that Jeff does and get hooked into that. For the number 3s, I drew red malachite. If you think of, a lot of us know about green malachite. Malachite has swirls in it. It swirls around. It has a lot of movement. The red malachite also has a lot of movement and swirls, but when we're talking about red, we're talking, again, like I was talking about with clay, we're talking about our root chakra. We're talking about our stability. We're talking about, but what I want the 3s to hear is that it's okay. Things right now seem a little uncertain. Some of us have are letting some fear crawl in. The red malachite here is to say, celebrate life while we're here. We're here in the now, and we need to celebrate the life and encourage. This red malachite is encouraging us to celebrate being alive with our loved ones now. What we were talking about, communicate that to everyone now. Tell our loved ones how much we care about them. And that will make us feel more secure in our root chakra and have a lot more stability if we connect with all those that we love so much that are here with us here in the now. We can also connect with our loved ones who have crossed, but also, while we can, connect with the ones that are with us and communicate like we've been talking about on the show tonight. So that's what I get for the threes, and that's red malachite. And it will help us, not alone, but it will help us dispel our fear, okay? Any fear and uncertainty that we have. Jeff, how can our listeners sign up for all, the people who are watching, sign up for your class, not for all the events that we were talking about? You do
The events are all accessible via pulver.com.
Okay.
Lots of other domains go there, but pulver.com is a wonderful way to look at what's happening Monday to Thursday in our schedule. And I do have upcoming retreats. Some of them are posted, some are not, but just look for updates at pulver.com. And if people want to reach me, I am fairly accessible via the internet. They could just send an email to jeff@pulver.com. And as long as the subject isn't spammy, it probably will end up in my eyes.
Okay.
Very
Great.
cool.
So no spammy emails to Jeff, and his eyes will see it probably, right?
So don't do the RE ...
don't
You just hit the lottery.
None
No,
of those.
if the filter gets it, all bets are off. So
So we want to thank Jeff so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really do appreciate it. I know how much of your time is always taken and how many things you do and record. I really do appreciate it, Jeff. And I just cannot thank you enough for being on the show.
I'm grateful to get to know you, both of you. I'm grateful to see the energy is still as high in the end as it was in the beginning. And I'm thankful for the work that you do, for the magic that you share with the universe. And I'm very grateful to be here today and to connect with some of the folks from your show. So thank you for the invitation. I am very grateful to be part of your show.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you for everyone who's listening and who watches on repeat. You can watch us on Michelle Soultopia on YouTube or on Facebook or on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And thank you for listening to SoulWhat, where we discuss matters that are important to our soul, and you get to discern and decide and mull over what's important to yours. Good night.
Good night, guys.